Shalom, welcome to part 7 of our series of Mystery Babylon. We were talking about the sun turning black and the moon turning into blood and the stars falling from heaven before the great and awesome day of Yahuwah, which is just about to come. And these are spiritual signs, and we need to compare spiritual things with spiritual and not look at carnal signs in the sun and the moon. So I can prove it to you from scripture, but before that I wanted to share with you a scripture, Deuteronomy chapter 32 verses 10. It talks about Yasharel, right? And it says, he found him, that is Yasharel, in a wilderness and in a wasted howling desert. He encompassed him. He made him understand. He watched over him as the apple of his eye. So the apple, the word apple over here of his eye is Ishon, alright, which is a pupil. And there is a word which is used for encompassed, which is sabab. So it says that, Yahuwah says that I found Israel in the wilderness, in a wasted howling desert. I encompassed him. The word encompassed is sabab, alright. I made him understand, and I watched over him as the apple of his eye, as the Ishon of his eye. The word sabab is samek, bet. We saw bab, which is a pupil. Again, it talks about the pupil of the eye. This is the eye, and this is the pupil. Alright? And samek means support. So Yahuwah encompassed Yasharel, alright? And in the wilderness, he surrounded, he mustered as an army around Yasharel, and he gave the law to Yasharel, and Yasharel, month by month, when they followed the cycle of Muadim, alright, it was like going around in circles as the pupil of the eye. But they fell miserably because they couldn't obey the Torah of Elohim. So there was a need for a mediator, right? There was a need for the tree of life to come in. The way of the tree of life was guarded by cherubims. In my previous studies, videos, on I think the name of the Creator, I spoke about the cherubs guarding the pattern. You'll see the cherubs all over in the Old Testament, alright, on the Ark of the Covenant. Two cherubs with their wings overshadowing the mercy seat, cherubs on the walls of the most set apart place, a palm tree with one cherub with the face of the lion, one cherub with the face of a man. So again pointing out to Mashiach, because he is the Lion of Yehuda. He came as a man and he sprang forth from Yehuda. And the palm tree talks about uprightness. Tamar, the word Tamar. I also shared about how Tamar went to Yehuda, her father-in-law, and got a seed because Shelah was reserved for her, but Yehuda failed on his promise of giving Shelah to her. So, but that is another topic. So that's about Yasharel, where Yahuwah says that I encompassed him, I surrounded him. Means Yahuwah is saying that I encompassed him. So the bab, the pupil, it is Yahuwah who is going to complete that cycle, because he is falling short of the esteem of Yahuwah. And Yahusha is a Yahuwah manifested in the flesh. He completed the cycle of the Muadim. He is the completeness of Torah. Do you know the meaning of Yerushalayim? Look it up. Yerushalayim, Yar means a river, alright, a flowing river, and Shalom means completeness. So the river flowing into completeness is Yerushalayim, alright, and Yahusha is Yahuwah manifested in the flesh. Now let me talk to you about the way of Cain. Alright, do you know that Cain, when he murdered his brother Habal, which is Abel, alright, and when he killed Abel, Yahuwah placed a mark on him. Have you read about that in scripture? Alright, let me take you through that. It's in Genesis chapter 4. Alright, in Genesis chapter 4 verses 15. And Yahuwah said unto him, therefore whosoever slays Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Yahuwah set a mark upon Cain, lest anyone finding him should kill him. So the Hebrew, the Abari word for mark in Cain is, Strong says it as Owth. Alright? They say it as O-W-T-H. That's how they spell it out. Alright? Actually it is the Ot, which is the Aleph, Waw, Tau. Now what is Aleph Tau? Aleph Tau you can find more than 7,000 times in the entire scripture. Alright, and it is before, it's in the very first verse also of the scripture, which says in Genesis chapter 1 verses 1, in the beginning Elohim created the Aleph Tau, the heavens, wow, the Aleph Tau, the earth. Right, so the Aleph Tau, if you would have gone through my video series of Aleph Bet, I explained to you Aleph was the first letter of Abari, and Tau is the last letter. Alright? And it's the mark of Yahusha, because Yahusha claims in Revelation chapter 1, he says that I am the Aleph and the Tau, the first and the last. Alright? So Aleph Tau is nothing but first and the last. But it's interesting to see this nail. Uav is a nail, which is a connector. Alright, and wherever this you will find Ot, it is connecting to the Aleph Tau in the previous verse or in that same verse. So you will find a word, a sentence with an Aleph Tau in the front of it, followed by Ot. Now what does Ot mean? Alright, so Ot is a sign or a token, which is an outward sign or a token. And if you read Genesis chapter 4 verse 14, Cain speaks to Yahuwah and says, behold, you have driven me out. Alright, you have driven me out is H853. Driven me out, Aleph Tau, this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that everyone who finds me shall kill me. Alright, verse 15, and Yahuwah said unto him, therefore whoever slays Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Yahuwah set Aleph Waw Tau, alright, that is a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. So what is this Aleph Waw Tau? We saw the Aleph Tau is connected to this day. In the previous verse, in verse 14, Genesis, look it up, chapter 4 verses 14. Just before this day you will see an Aleph Tau over there. I don't know which translation you all would be looking up to, but I encourage you to go through Strong's, and Strong's interprets Aleph Tau as Eth, because they don't know what an Eth, they say they don't know what Eth means, because carnal man cannot understand spiritual things. Okay, so verse 14 it says that, behold, here Cain is saying, he's telling Yahuwah, you have driven me out, Aleph Tau, this day. So this day is nothing but the day of salvation. So Cain was driven away from from being saved. He would be a vagabond. He would go in the cycles of the six, but he'll never reach to the Shabbat rest. That is the way of Cain. Alright, and what was the token given to him? The Ot, Aleph Waw Tau. The nail is the connector, as also the nail is a judgment. Shalom, shalom. Let's continue in the next part. Welcome to part 8 of our series of Mystery Babylon. We are talking about the mark of Cain, the way of Cain. So Cain was marked, and we saw Ot as the mark connecting to this day. This day is in present tense, speaking to the day of salvation. So he will no longer receive salvation. And it's very interesting to see, if you read Jude chapter 1 verses 11, it says, woe to them for they have gone in the way of Cain. Woe to them. It's talking about people who have gone in astray from the Torah of life, and they have ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward and perished in the gainsaying of Korah. So Jude chapter 1 verses 11 talks about the way of Cain. So what is the way of Cain? The way of Cain is to murder Habal, his brother. So he was a murderer. So all those murdering the Torah of life, alright, by following the Torah of Khat and Mut, which is sin and death, are nothing but in the way of Cain. And they are marked with an oath, alright, to be cut off from this day, because they will never attain the Shabbat, they will never attain the seventh day rest of Yahuwah, which He has preserved and reserved for His people. Okay? So let me give you a few scriptures which shows you a proof of this oath. Alright? Please look up Genesis chapter 1 verses 7 and verse 14. So let's read what Genesis chapter 1 verse 7 says. And Elohim made the Aleph Tau firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. Alright? So there is an Aleph Tau before the firmament. When you read down to verse 14, it says, and Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, oath. Alright? Let them be for oath, and for seasons, and for days and years. So the signs in the sun, moon and stars. Alright, that's what is the heavenly bodies, right? So these signs, these were signs of time. These were pointing to something. And what is that pointing out to? It's pointing out from the division of the expanse, the firmament, from waters. Alright? So there are people in sinking and drowning in the waters of the Torah of Khat and Mut, while the elect in the New Jerusalem will be caught up, alright, and they will have access to the waters which are above, who's Mashiach, and only Mashiach can Masha us out of these deep waters. The word Masha is in Mashiach. The name Moses is the name Masha in Abari. Masha means to draw out of waters. Pharaoh's sister said that I drew him out of many waters. I drew him out of waters, and she named him Masha. Masha means drawing out of water. So that is the picture that we see over here. And the Aleph Uav Tau, which was a physical sign or a token, alright, given pointing out to the Aleph Tau, which is the spiritual, alright, the physical pointing to the spiritual. Revelation 6 verses 12. The signs were related to the firmament. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became blood. Revelation 8 verse 12. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. Matthew chapter 16 verse 3. And in the morning it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. O you hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky, but can you not discern the signs of times? These are Yahusha's words. That you look up to the sky, you know that you say it is fair weather or the weather is foul. You look up to the signs, you look up to the sky for signs, but you can't discern the signs of times. So these signs, that is a Aleph Uav Tau, was pointing out to the spiritual, the Torah of life. Okay? So while Elohim set these signs, those in the way of Cain see literal signs in the sun, moon and stars, are deceived into literal carnal following the sun and moon calendars, without understanding, the sun is turned into black and the moon has turned into blood. So Elohim set the lights to divide the day from the night as the signs. The sign of the sun darkening, moon turning into blood, and the stars falling. His nail mark, which is the judgment, fastened it, and he will judge and show the division, the separation between the life and death. So that's what Aleph Waw Tau shows, separation from life and death. I'll give you one more example. Circumcision, Genesis chapter 17 verse 11. Look up Genesis chapter 17 and verse 11. Alright, it says, and you shall, Aleph Tau, circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token, Aleph Waw Tau, of the covenant between me and you. So, the outward token was cutting of the flesh of the foreskin of the inward circumcision of the heart. Alright? So, the token was of the covenant was in connection to the Aleph Tau circumcise used in the same verse. So the token of the covenant connects to the circumcision. We know that Elohim's word is spiritual, and the physical stood as a sign or token of the circumcision of the heart. Okay? While the carnal chase after the token, they chase after the sign, after the mark, the spiritual eye sees the fulfillment in Mashiach. Because Romans chapter 2 verse 28 and 29 says, for he is not a Yahudi, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Yahudi, which is one inwardly, and the circumcision is that of the heart in the spirit, not in the letter, whose praise is not of men but of Elohim. So Paul says, not in the letter but in the spirit. That's what matters. That is the Aleph Tau. And Aleph Waw Tau was a token pointing out to the spiritual. Alright? So, Shalom, Shalom. Let's continue in the next part. Shalom, family. Welcome to part 9 of our series of Mystery Babylon. So, we were talking about the mark of Cain, and we saw that the auth is connected to the Aleph Tau, which is this day. Alright, and we saw the circumcision as an outward sign or token. The word is auth. Alright, and we saw it speaks about the spiritual circumcision of the heart. We saw Romans chapter 2 verses 28 and 29. It says that a true Yahudi is one whose heart is circumcised. We also saw the dividing of the waters from waters, the firmament, the Aleph Tau before the firmament, and the Aleph Tau, which is the signs in the sky, where Yahuwah placed the sun, moon, and stars. All right, and everyone who is after the goal of the Torah, that is Mashiach, who's come, and everyone who is still following the outward token or sign is in the way of Cain. It's very clear. It is very, very clear. It's crystal clear that I've seen on Facebook people for Passover, during the feast of Passover, they're even slaying goats. That is an abomination to Yahuwah, because how can you slay a goat? In other words, you are telling Yahusha, your sacrifice is not enough for me on the stake. Alright, I've seen people slaying goats. I've seen during Feast of Tabernacles, people boasting. They build booths in their backyard. They decorate it. Alright, and they live in it. They eat in it. So all these things are abominable. They mean nothing. That is only fleshly appeasements. That is a way of Cain. The old wine has been given over to Shaitan. I'll prove it to you from the scriptures. I already showed you Revelation chapter 17 verses 9, where the woman, she yashabats on the feasts, on the 7 mountains, the 7 Rashayam, the Shabbat, the Shabua. Right? So these things need to be taken very seriously, or else you will perish. Because man is in the outward circle of 6, an incomplete 6, 6, 6, 3. A threefold witness of incompleteness. Right? So now let me take you through some scriptures. Very interesting. When I was studying the book of Ayub, all right, I came across the affliction of Ayub and how he reacted to the affliction, how his friends gave him wrong counsel and gave a negative picture of Elohim before him, but he kept his belief in Elohim very strong right till the end. And we come to Ayub chapter 42 verse 10 and this opened my eyes to a whole new dimension of understanding what the captivity is all about. When I read Ayub chapter 42 verse 10, it says, and Yahuwah turned the captivity of Ayub when he prayed for his friends, and Yahuwah gave Ayub twice as much as he had before. Now this is the English translation, but when I looked up the Abari words, I saw it says that, and Yahuwah turned the shabut of Ayub when he prayed for his friends, and Yahuwah gave Ayub twice as much as he had before. So this word shabut, which is captivity, alright, is twice in that verse. Right? This word shabut is twice in that verse. Shabut, shabut. And what does this show you? Shabbat. So see, the captivity is so closely related to Shabbat. So Shabbat also means to cease from all work. And captivity is nothing but, you're saying that no, there is still some work to do. So that is the captivity, and it very clearly says that Yahuwah turned the shabut of Ayub. That means Ayub was also in that same kind of captivity of the Torah. If you see, the book of Ayub begins, he always lived in fear. He always said that maybe my sons have sinned against Yahuwah. He sacrificed for them, and he was, also having a kind of self-righteousness which can be seen from his reaction in his prayer to Yahuwah, where his friends point out to him that, are you more righteous, a man making himself equal to Elohim? So I don't want to get into that negative aspect of Ayub, but in all respect, all right, to Ayub and his belief in Yahuwah, all right, there was a kind of carnality even in Ayub that is displayed in the book. That would be another topic altogether. But towards the end, when Yahuwah meets him and Yahuwah asks him a few questions, were you there when I made the foundations of the earth? Were you there when I created wisdom? Were you there when I created the rain and so and so? And that's the time he realizes his mortality, his condition. He realizes his need for his completeness to transform himself into the likeness and image of Yahuwah. All right. Let's read one more verse in Psalms chapter 68 verse 18. It says, "You have ascended on high. You have led captivity captive. You have received gifts among men, among the rebellious also, that Yah Elohim may dwell there." So this is talking about Yahusha, because the same verse is in Ephesians chapter 4 verses 8. It says, "You have ascended on high and you have led captivity captive." Again the same word, Shabot, Shabai. Alright, the words used here for captivity captive is Shabot, Shabai. Alright, so Ephesians 4:8, like I said, again speaking about Mashiach, it says, therefore, it says, when he ascended on high, he led captivity captive and he gave gifts unto men. So who are the men? It's we, the rebellious house of Yasharel, who are once bound with the carnal commandment. Alright, he led that captivity captive. Shabot Shabai or Shabot Shabot. He took us into his rest, a promise to be fulfilled very shortly. Okay, so let me show you something. Here is this. Okay, so we are discussing about the word shab. Alright, shab means to turn. Okay, and Bath. Alright, Bath is daughter. So the daughter of Sion is turning to Yahuwah in the right path, into the ancient path. That's what Shabbat means. Turning away, turning towards Yahuwah. Alright, it's connected to the rest that we have in Mashiach. Alright, if we read Psalms chapter 126, alright, I'll read a few scriptures to you. Psalms chapter 126, it's a psalm where Yasharel returns back from captivity, the Babylonian captivity. And verse 1, alright, it says, when Yahuwah brought the captivity of Zion, we shall be like dreamers. Alright, now this is the English translation, but when you read the Abari again, it says, when Yahuwah brought the captive of Zion, we shall be like dreamers. So Shabua, the words there are Shabua, Shabbat. Shabua, Shebat. Right, those are the words over there for captivity, captive. Then it goes on to say, then our mouth shall be filled with laughter and our tongue with singing. Then shall they say among the nations, Yahuwah has done great deeds for them. Yahuwah shall do great deeds for us. We shall be glad. Verse 4, O Yahuwah, Shabua, Shabbatanu us as the streams in the south. Shalom, shalom. Let's continue. Shalom, welcome to part 10 of our series of Mystery Babylon. I was on Psalms 126 and I was looking at verse 4, which says, O Yahuwah, Shabua, Shabbatanu us as the streams in the south. That's what it says in Hebrew. O Yahuwah, Shabua, Shabbatanu us as the streams in the south. In English, there's only one word saying that captivity. Right? But you need to look at the Abari language. It's so beautiful, which shows that our captivity being led captive by Yahusha himself, the fulfillment, which as we read in Ephesians chapter 4 verses 8. Alright? So the 7 feasts of Yahuwah in carnal ordinances is where the woman Mystery Babylon is Yashabating. She's sitting over there. Alright? And the end of Ayub's captivity, captive, is tied to our deliverance from captivity, captive from Mystery Babylon. Okay? And if you read, if you look up Strong's H 1339, alright? Is this? Sorry, this duster is thrown out. Okay. It says Bathsheba. This is the word for Bathsheba. Bath. Actually, it's Bathsheba in the original Abari, and it is spelled as. What am I doing? Bath. Shaba. In a bed. And a ain at the end. Alright? Again you see Shab and Bath, which means daughter. So daughter, this is turning, the daughter is turning to Yahuwah's house, and Shaba means oath. Okay? So Bathsheba was the wife of Daud. You know about the account where Daud committed adultery by taking Bathsheba, was originally the wife of Uriah, one of his citizens of his kingdom, and he was supporting Daud in the war. and Daud defrauded him by taking Bathsheba because he lusted after her and made her pregnant, and he committed adultery with her. And Psalms 51 is a beautiful psalm of him converting, crying out to Yahuwah, to save him from that sin of adultery which he had committed with Bathsheba, and Yahuwah forgave him because he also had Uriah killed. He not only committed adultery with her, but he also killed Uriah in the battle by putting him in the forefront of the battle. And Yahuwah forgave that sin, and that name Bathsheba reflects the daughter, who was in adultery, turning back to Yahuwah by swearing to Yahuwah. Shaba means oath, alright, and Shab means turning. Okay, another interesting thing that I wanted to speak about is bath. This word bath. Bath is also a measure. In Old Testament, it was a measure. It was an equal measure to ephah. Now let me talk about ephah a bit. All right. Okay. So when you read Exodus chapter 16 and verse 36, it says, and an omer is 1/10 of an ephah. So ephah and bath, ephah and bath, right? These were equal measures, all right, and they were used in the Old Testament, and both ephah and bath contained 1/10 of an amar. They say it as omer, but it is actually amar. Amar is written like this, amar and the resh, all right. This is amar. Amar also means sheaf. You shall bind your sheaves and bring them. So both this ephah and bath, alright, they contain 1/10 of an amar. And when you read Exodus chapter 16 verse 16, the manna which rained down from heaven was to be collected an amar for each being according to the number of beings. Alright, so the manna was collected in an amar, a unit of measurement. And you can see bath, alright. The measurement bath, you can look up Strong's 1324, right? Bath, okay? It's a unit of liquid measure equal to dry measure of ephah. So bath is equal to ephah. So shab, which means turn, to bath, the correct measure. Alright? So Shabbat also means turning to the correct measure. Shab means turn and bath means measure. Alright? And bath shabai means correct measure of oath. You are swearing by the correct measure. That's what it means. If you read Leviticus chapter 5 verse 11, it says, but if he is unable to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, then he who sinned shall bring for his offering 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a sin offering. He puts no oil on it, nor does he put any frankincense on it, for it is a sin offering. So the measurement of ephah of fine flour, the 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour, was a poor man's offering. In the Old Testament, when a poor man couldn't even afford 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, like it went like this: the rich class people could afford an heifer. A heifer was very expensive for the sacrifice. Then the lamb, then came the lamb, then the sheep and the goats. So those were also used in sacrifice. Bullocks also, the rich people sacrificed bullocks as sacrifices. But what did the poor do? Poor of the land, they couldn't afford anything, so they offered 2 turtle doves. If you read about Maryam and Yosef, Yahusha's parents, all right, they offered 2 turtle doves, okay, because they were poor. But there were more poorer people than them, and what those poor people offered is written in Leviticus chapter 5 verse 11: 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a sin offering. Okay. Now, if you read Zechariah chapter 5, I urge you to read Zechariah chapter 5 verses 1 to 11. alright, it talks about a flying roll of ephah. Have you read that? Alright, it says, and I lifted up my eyes again and looked and saw a flying roll. And he said to me, what do you see? And I answered, I see a flying roll 20 cubits long and 10 cubits wide. And he said to me, this is the curse. The word there for curse is oath, Allah, alright, that goes forth over the face of all the earth. Everyone who's stealing shall go unpunished on the one side according to it, and everyone who has sworn falsely shall go unpunished on the other side according to it. Now the word sworn over there is Shabbat. Right? Shabbat, oath. So, what it says is that Yahuwah is saying that there are people who have sworn falsely by my name. Okay, so there are two kinds of people. One, the daughter going, that is the path, going to the correct measure. Alright, she's turning Shabbat, the Shab is turning to the correct measure, and there is another set of people in the carnal commandment. They are swearing falsely by the name of Yahuwah. And this flying roll is of the ephah. And if you go on to see, okay, Zechariah sees this woman sitting in the ephah, and that woman is wickedness, it says. And that flying roll was carried by two women with wings of stork. Okay, stork was a Old Testament unclean animal. Alright, shalom, shalom. Let's continue in part 11. Welcome to part 11 of Mystery Babylon, the mother of all harlots. And I was on Zechariah chapter 5, where Zechariah sees the vision of the flying roll, and the flying roll contained the ephah, which was an Old Testament measure, which was equal to bath. Alright, and we saw that the amar is 1/10 of an ephah. The amar was used to collect manna, okay, which Yahuwah rained from heaven. So see how these three measures are listed in the Old Testament and how they are connected. Okay, and in this roll was this woman sitting in that ephah, okay, and which is the sin offering, and that woman is called wickedness. That is like Jezebel, the mystery Babylon, sitting within the measures and diversifying the measures by falsifying the balances of Yahuwah, by promoting a false basara. Alright, that's where mystery Babylon is sitting. Okay, and this flying roll is being carried by two women with the wings of stork. Stork is an unclean animal, and that roll was suspended between heaven and earth. Okay, and this roll was being carried to Shinar. If you read verse 11, I'll read it out to it. Says, and he said to me to build a house for it in the land of Shinar. Shinar is in Babylon. Okay, and it shall be established and set there on its own base. So this flying roll is being carried to Babel. So it's giving a picture of the Babel's falsified measure. All right, which is corrupting Yahuwah's basara by adding to it, or by leading people to the carnal commandment. Okay, let me read a few scriptures to you. Ezekiel chapter 45 verses 9. Thus said the Master Yahuwah, enough, you princes of Yasharel, put away violence and plundering, and do right ruling and righteousness, and stop your evictions of my people, declares the Master Yahuwah. Have right scales, and a right ephah, and a right bath. Let the ephah and the bath be of the same measure, so that the bath contains 1/10 of the homer, and the ephah 1/10 of a homer. Let their measure be according to the homer. Alright, so again, this verse confirms that both these measurements, the ephah and the bath, should be of equal measure. But Yasharel was, what they were doing? They were corrupting Yahuwah's measures by the carnal commandment, because they went astray. They went away from Yahuwah, and that's the reason they went into captivity. And our captivity only ends with Mashiach, because he leads captivity captive and gives gifts unto men, even unto the rebellious. We were rebellious against his commandments, the Torah of life. We were rebellious against the Torah of life, but thank Yahuwah that he has opened our eyes to see the Ruach in the Safar, the Ruach in the letter, the Spirit in the letter. Alright? And it's very interesting to see Strong's H2563, alright, which the word there for Omer, instead of Omer, is used as Hamar. Alright? It's Kat, Mem and Resh. Sorry, my drawing is poor. So H2563. What means Kamar? Kamar is clay, because man is made of clay and man is being measured. Revelation chapter 11 verses 1. Who is being measured there into the temple? Which temple are we talking about? Are we talking about the third temple, which people on Facebook are teaching that Yahusha will literally come in Jerusalem, he'll build a temple, he'll be seated in the temple, he'll start the sacrifices and oblation. That's all abomination. Alright? We are the temple of the Ruach HaKodesh. Alright? And Yahusha dwells with us. We are his body. Alright? So the temple is spiritual and not carnal. So the word Kamar means clay or mud, and that's what it shows, that we are mud and clay, and we are being measured into that temple, into that body, the body of flesh and bones. Okay? And also the beautiful aspect of the scripture is that it says that we are one Ruach with the Master. Alright, it says that we are one Ruach with the Master. We go beyond the veil of his flesh into the Ruach. Alright, and once we go into the Ruach, we are one in the Ruach with our Master. And we will be transformed into his body. His body is no longer clay or mud. He came in our likeness so that he could pay the penalty for our disobedience. So, coming back to the topic, we see two Yerushalayim here, or two Yasharel here. One is in the carnal commandment. Alright, she is turning. But where is she turning to? Judaism. The bath is the shab, the turning shab, bath. So, the daughter is turning to carnal Judaism, and there is the other Ruach Yasharel, which Paul talks about in Galatians chapter 6 verses 17. Let me read that scripture to you. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 17. It says, verse 15 and 16. Alright, let me read out to you. Verse 15 says, for in Mashiach Yahusha neither circumcision nor uncircumcision has any strength, but a renewed creature. And as many as walk according to this rule, peace and compassion be upon them and upon the Yasharel of Elohim. So this is the Ruach Yasharel of Elohim, who is walking in the Ruach, is a renewed creature. They find their completeness in Mashiach. We know that we cannot be in the outward cycles, the uncleanliness of the woman, month on month, looking towards purification, because the purifier, the sanctifier, the one who refines us by fire, in him is Mashiach. He is the goal of the Torah. So this is spiritual Yasharel. So two Yasharels. Alright? The turning of the daughter to the correct measure, to the tents of Yahuwah. So the word Shabbat means measure, it also means daughter, it also means house. So you are turning to the correct measure. The daughter is turning to Yahuwah's house. Right? So that's what it means. So this is a beautiful aspect what we see from scripture. Alright? Let me read one more scripture to you. Leviticus chapter 15 verses 19. It says, when a woman has a discharge, if a discharge in her flesh is blood, she shall be in a menstruational impurity for 7 days, and anyone touching her shall be unclean until evening. The word until there is again add. They have translated add as until, but add we know is a repeat witness. You are likely to touch a woman, in a menstruational uncleanliness continuously, because this is a never-ending cycle. It keeps going in the 6-6-6 cycle, never attaining to the Shabbat rest. And the Shabuot, which is the captivity, ends in Mashiach alone. So this is the end of this part. We will continue in the next part. Shalom, shalom, family.